What Judge Curry asked, her very last question of the the Justice Department, do you believe U.S. v. Trump was wrongly decided? That's a very telling question because the Trump defense team, when Donald Trump was a criminal defendant, he had won his case by having the prosecutor, Jack Smith, tossed off of it in Florida in a set of arguments very similar to this. And Judge Curry is now asking the Justice Department, are you guys against that now as the Justice Department wanting these cases against James Comey and Letitia James to go forward? The Justice Department lawyer responded, that's a different thing. That was a different situation that doesn't apply here. But that was quite a question that elicited gasps across the courtroom from a lot of people that were listening to this hearing.
So to remind you of the Jack Smith disqualification for being inappropriately appointed, you know, the same thing that now they're arguing is the case with Lindsay Halligan. Just review this with Jack Smith so you can compare.
So a federal judge and Trump appointee Aileen Cannon has thrown out the indictment charging Trump with mishandling classified documents. Cannon ruled the appointment of special counsel Jack Smith is unconstitutional. So Jessica, explain this decision and the argument over the special counsel to us.
So this decision is based on a part of the Constitution called the Appointments Clause. And what she says is that Jack Smith was not validly appointed. She basically says there are two routes here for appointing somebody. You can either have a superior officer.
Okay, so Pam Bondi just got absolutely destroyed by a federal judge. And I'm not talking about a slap on the wrist or a fine. I'm talking about immediate asset seizure. A federal judge just ordered the freezing and seizure of Bondi's personal and professional assets, bank accounts, investments, real estate, everything. The judge is taking everything from her, and it gets worse. The judge threatened immediate arrest if Bondi continues to defy court orders. This is unprecedented. We're talking about a former attorney general, someone who was the top law enforcement officer in Florida, someone who's been one of Trump's most loyal allies, and a federal judge just crushed her financially and legally. And it all happened because Bondi got caught red-handed removing documents from a courthouse after a judge ordered her to produce them. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
It's Letitia James. She is on trial currently for bank fraud, and she's trying to get the prosecutor in the case, Lindsay Halligan, disqualified from her position. And just this week, y'all, there was a hearing in Alexandria in federal court about just that. Now, remember, Letitia James, she's teamed up with James Comey, the two Jameses. They've teamed up. And together, they're looking to get Lindsay Halligan, the federal prosecutor, disqualified from her position under a theory that she was improperly appointed to her position. And things went left, y'all. Things went left during the hearing for Lindsay Halligan, okay? So there's some good news for James because things went left for Lindsay Halligan. There's some bad news for James because if this trial does continue, as I'm going to show you, this could get really ugly for Letitia James, y'all. So I'm not going to do a long lead in, y'all. Let's go ahead and hop right into the story.
Here's what happened. Bondi was in court for proceedings related to Trump's cases. The judge issued a direct order. The DOJ needs to produce documents, comply with discovery, hand over evidence. That's a standard court order. And Bondi, who's apparently involved in Trump's legal defense or has documents relevant to the cases, was supposed to comply. Instead, video evidence shows Bondi leaving the courthouse with boxes of documents right after the judge's order. Timestamps match up. Eyewitnesses saw her, and prosecutors have the video. That's Bondi literally removing court-ordered evidence, taking it away from the courthouse in direct defiance of a judge's order. That's obstruction of justice. That's contempt of court. And that's why the judge came down on her so hard. The judge didn't mess around with warnings. The order came down fast and hard. Asset freeze and seizure. Everything Bondi owns is now under court control. She can't transfer money. She can't sell property. She can't liquidate investments. Everything is frozen. And if she tries to move assets or hide them, she faces immediate arrest. The judge made that crystal clear. One more violation and you're going to jail. Not maybe, not will think about it. You will be arrested immediately. That's a federal judge putting Bondi on the shortest possible leash and threatening her with jail if she steps out of line, even slightly. Legal experts are saying this is irrefutable proof of obstruction because there's video evidence. Bondi was caught on camera removing documents after a court order. That's not ambiguous. That's not a gray area. That's clear, documented obstruction. And judges take that very seriously because if people can just ignore court orders and remove evidence, the entire judicial system falls apart. Courts have to be able to enforce their orders. And when someone defies a direct court order as blatantly as Bondi did, judges respond with the harshest measures available, which is exactly what happened here. Asset seizure, arrest threat, the works. And the asset seizure isn't just punitive, it's strategic. Because prosecutors need those documents Bondi removed, they're evidence in criminal cases against Trump and possibly against Bondi herself. So the judge is using the asset freeze as leverage. The message is clear. If you want access to your money, if you want to keep your property, you need to produce those documents. You need to comply with court orders. And if you don't, you lose everything. That's a federal judge using financial pressure to force compliance, and it's effective. Because most people care a lot about their money and property, so threatening to take it all away is a powerful incentive to cooperate. Bondi is reportedly desperate right now because she's financially frozen. She can't pay lawyers. She can't access her accounts. She can't do anything with her assets, and she's facing the threat of immediate arrest if she doesn't comply. That's an impossible position. She either produces the documents and potentially incriminates herself or Trump, or she refuses and gets arrested and loses everything. There's no good option for her, and that's exactly what the judge intended. Put Bondi in a position where cooperation is her only viable choice. And this isn't just affecting Bondi. This is sending a message to every other Trump ally who might be thinking about obstructing justice or defying court orders. The message is, look what happened to Pam Bondi. She removed documents from a courthouse after a judge ordered their production, and now she's financially frozen and facing arrest. Do you want that to happen to you? Because if you obstruct justice, if you defy court orders, judges will come after you hard. They will freeze your assets. They will threaten you with arrest. They will make your life miserable until you comply. That warning is going to make other Trump allies think twice about helping him obstruct justice. The coordination between DOJ and multiple states and agencies is also significant because this isn't just one judge acting alone. Federal prosecutors are coordinating with state prosecutors. Multiple agencies are involved in enforcing the asset freeze. That means Bondi can't hide assets in different jurisdictions. She can't move money to a state where the federal order doesn't apply. Everything is being tracked and frozen across all jurisdictions. That's comprehensive enforcement, and it shows how serious authorities are about making sure Bondi complies and that she faces consequences for her obstruction. And there's the possibility of criminal charges beyond contempt, because removing court-ordered evidence could be obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, conspiracy if she was acting in coordination with Trump or others. All of those are federal crimes that carry serious prison time. So Bondi isn't just facing asset seizure and contempt charges. She's potentially facing years in federal prison if prosecutors decide to charge her with obstruction. And given that there's video evidence of her removing documents, charging her should be straightforward. So yeah, this is massive. Pam Bondi, former Florida Attorney General and Trump ally, got caught removing documents from a courthouse after a judge ordered their production, and the judge responded by freezing all her assets, ordering seizure of her property, and threatening immediate arrest. Bondi is financially crushed and facing potential prison time, and it's all happening because she tried to help Trump obstruct justice. This is what consequences look like, and it's finally happening to Trump's inner circle. All right, let's dig into the legal mechanisms at work here and why this asset seizure is so devastating for Bondi. Because understanding the legal tools judges have and how they're being used helps explain why Bondi is in such deep trouble and why this is unprecedented for someone of her stature and position. First, let's talk about what happened procedurally. A judge issued an order requiring document production. This is standard in criminal cases. Prosecutors need evidence. They file motions asking the court to compel production of documents. The judge reviews the motion and decides whether the documents are relevant and should be produced. In this case, the judge decided, yes, these documents need to be produced, and the judge issued an order. That order is legally binding. It's not a suggestion. It's not optional. When a judge orders you to produce documents, you have to do it. Failing to comply is contempt of court, and removing the documents so you can't produce them is obstruction of justice. And that's exactly what Bondi apparently did. According to the evidence prosecutors have, Bondi left the courthouse with boxes of documents right after the judge's order. The timing is important because if she removed documents before the order, that might be less clearly obstruction. She could argue she didn't know she'd be ordered to produce them, but she removed them after the order, after she knew the judge wanted those documents produced. That shows intent. That shows she was deliberately trying to prevent compliance with the court order, and that's obstruction. The video evidence is crucial here because obstruction charges often come down to proof of intent. Did the person knowingly try to impede the legal process? Video showing Bondi removing documents right after a court order makes proving intent easy. The timing speaks for itself. An eyewitness testimony corroborates the video. Multiple people saw Bondi leaving with boxes. They can testify about what they saw. So prosecutors have both documentary evidence, the video, and witness testimony. That's an overwhelming case for obstruction. Now let's talk about the asset seizure itself. This is an extraordinary remedy. Courts typically don't seize assets unless there's a very serious violation, but obstruction of justice by removing court-ordered evidence is exactly the kind of violation that justifies asset seizure because the court needs leverage to force compliance, and threatening criminal charges isn't always enough. Some people are willing to risk prosecution to protect themselves or others, but most people aren't willing to lose everything financially. So by freezing and seizing Bondi's assets, the judge is creating enormous pressure for her to comply. The asset freeze works like this. The court issues an order prohibiting Bondi from transferring, selling, or otherwise disposing of any assets. That includes bank accounts, investment accounts, real estate, vehicles, anything of value, and the order extends to anyone acting on Bondi's behalf, so she can't just have a family member or friend move assets for her. If anyone helps her violate the freeze, they can be held in contempt too. That makes the freeze very effective, because Bondi is essentially locked out of her own financial life. The seizure goes even further. That means the court can actually take control of Bondi's assets, not just freeze them, but seize them. Transfer ownership to the court or to the government. That's usually done when there's concern that the person might try to hide or destroy assets, or when the assets themselves are evidence or proceeds of criminal activity. In Bondi's case, the seizure might be partly about evidence preservation. If some of the documents she removed relate to financial transactions or assets, the court might want to seize those assets to preserve them as evidence. The order apparently extends to everything Bondi owns. Bank accounts. That means she can't withdraw money or pay bills. Investments. That means she can't sell stocks or access retirement accounts. Real estate. That means she can't sell property or even take out loans against it. This is comprehensive financial paralysis, and it's devastating because Bondi still has expenses. She probably has a mortgage. She definitely has legal bills. She might have employees or business obligations, and she can't access her money to pay any of it. That creates immediate financial crisis. And here's where the leverage comes in. The judge is essentially saying, if you want your financial life back, produce the documents, comply with the court order. Once you do that, we can talk about unfreezing your assets. But until you comply, you're financially frozen. That's the judge using asset seizure as a tool to compel compliance with court orders. And it's legal. Courts have broad authority to use civil contempt sanctions to force compliance with their orders. And asset seizure is one of the most powerful sanctions available. The immediate arrest threat is also significant because it shows the judge isn't just using financial pressure. The judge is also threatening criminal sanctions. If Bondi continues to defy court orders, she faces immediate arrest. That means no more hearings or delays. The moment she violates another order, marshals can take her into custody. She could be held in jail pending a contempt hearing, and if she's found in contempt, she could face jail time as punishment. That threat of immediate arrest hangs over everything Bondi does now. One wrong move and she's in handcuffs. The coordination between federal and state authorities is also important because asset seizure only works if it's enforced across jurisdictions. If Bondi could just move assets to a different state and avoid the freeze, it wouldn't be effective. But prosecutors are coordinating with authorities in multiple states. They're making sure the freeze is enforced everywhere. That means Bondi can't hide assets. She can't move them to a state where the order doesn't apply. Everything she owns, wherever it is frozen. That comprehensive enforcement makes the freeze much more powerful. And prosecutors are apparently pursuing criminal charges beyond contempt. Obstruction of justice is a federal crime. Tampering with evidence is a federal crime. If Bondi was acting in coordination with Trump or others to remove documents and obstruct proceedings, that could be conspiracy. All of these charges carry serious prison time. Obstruction can be 20 years. Conspiracy can be 5 to 10 years. So Bondi isn't just facing asset seizure and contempt. She's potentially facing decades in federal prison, and the evidence against her is strong. Videos showing her removing documents, eyewitnesses corroborating, timestamps proving it happened right after a court order. That's a prosecutor's dream case. Bondi's desperation is understandable given her situation. She's financially frozen. She's threatened with immediate arrest. She's facing potential felony charges, and she's caught on video committing obstruction. She has no good options. If she produces the documents, they might incriminate her or Trump. If she doesn't produce them, she stays frozen and faces arrest and prosecution, and she can't afford good lawyers because her assets are frozen, so she can't even mount an effective legal defense. That's a nightmare scenario for any defendant. And this case is sending shockwaves through Trump's legal team and inner circle, because if a federal judge will freeze Pam Bondi's assets and threaten her with immediate arrest for obstruction, judges will do the same to other Trump allies who obstruct. That creates enormous incentive to comply with court orders, to produce documents, to testify truthfully, to cooperate with prosecutors, because the alternative is financial ruin and prison, and most people aren't willing to sacrifice everything for Trump. The precedent this sets is also important, because now prosecutors know they can ask judges to freeze assets of people who obstruct justice, and judges know they can grant those requests, and courts will enforce them. That's a powerful tool for fighting obstruction, and it's going to be used more frequently going forward. Whenever someone defies a court order or removes evidence, prosecutors can ask for asset seizure, and judges will likely grant it, because this case shows it works. It creates leverage, it forces compliance, and it sends a strong message that obstruction will not be tolerated. Bondi's case is also significant because of who she is. She's not some low-level Trump associate. She's a former attorney general. She was the top law enforcement officer in Florida. She's supposed to understand and respect the legal system, and yet she allegedly removed court-ordered evidence. That makes her obstruction even more egregious, because she should have known better. She should have known that removing documents after a court order is obstruction, and she did it anyway. That shows either desperation or a belief that she's above the law. Either way, the judge is making clear she's not above the law. She's subject to the same rules as everyone else, and when she breaks those rules, she faces harsh consequences. Okay, let's break this down into clear points so you understand exactly what happened to Bondi and why it's so devastating. Point 1. Video evidence and eyewitness testimony caught Bondi removing boxes of documents from the courthouse right after a judge ordered their production. This is irrefutable proof of obstruction. The video shows Bondi leaving with documents. Timestamps prove it happened after the court order. Eyewitnesses saw her do it. That's overwhelming evidence that Bondi deliberately removed court-ordered evidence, and that's obstruction of justice. There's no ambiguity here, no room for interpretation. Bondi was caught red-handed on video committing a federal crime. Point 2. The judge responded by ordering immediate asset freeze and seizure of everything Bondi owns, including bank accounts, investments, and real estate. This is one of the harshest civil sanctions a court can impose. Everything Bondi owns is now frozen. She can't access her money. She can't sell property. She can't do anything with her assets. And the court can actually seize them, take ownership of them. That's comprehensive financial paralysis. It's devastating. And it's designed to force Bondi to comply with court orders by creating unbearable financial pressure. Point 3. The judge threatened Bondi with immediate arrest if she continues to violate court orders. This isn't a distant threat. This is immediate. One more violation, and Bondi gets arrested on the spot. No more hearings, no more chances, just handcuffs. That threat hangs over everything Bondi does now. She has to be extremely careful, because one wrong move means she's in jail, and that's exactly what the judge intended. Create such intense pressure that Bondi has no choice but to comply. Point 4. Legal experts unanimously agree this is clear obstruction, not an ambiguous situation, because the evidence is so strong. Video, eyewitnesses, timestamps, all proven Bondi removed documents after a court order. That's textbook obstruction. There's no defense for it. And legal experts are saying the judge's response, asset seizure and arrest threat, is appropriate given how blatant the obstruction was. This isn't the judge overreacting. This is the judge using appropriate tools to deal with clear and documented obstruction of justice. Point 5. The asset freeze leaves Bondi unable to pay lawyers or access funds, creating immediate financial crisis. Because Bondi still has expenses, she probably has a mortgage. She definitely has legal bills that are mounting by the day. She might have business obligations or employees to pay, and she can't access any of her money to handle any of it. That creates immediate crisis. Bills go unpaid. Lawyers might withdraw if they're not getting paid. Properties could go into foreclosure. That's the judge using financial pressure to maximum effect, making non-compliance so painful that Bondi is forced to cooperate. Point 6. Prosecutors are coordinating with multiple states and agencies to enforce the freeze across all jurisdictions. This means Bondi can't hide assets. She can't move money to a different state to avoid the freeze. Federal, state, and local authorities are all working together to make sure every asset Bondi owns, wherever it is, gets frozen. That comprehensive enforcement makes the freeze much more effective because Bondi has no escape, no way to access hidden assets or move money around. Everything is locked down everywhere. Point 7. The judge is using asset seizure both as punishment and as leverage to recover the missing documents. The freeze isn't just about punishing Bondi for contempt. It's also about forcing her to produce the documents she removed. The message is clear. You want your financial life back? Produce the documents, comply with the court order. Once you do that, we can talk about unfreezing assets. But until then, you're financially frozen. That's the judge using civil sanctions strategically to accomplish the court's goal of getting evidence it ordered produced. Point 8. Bondi faces potential federal charges for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and possibly conspiracy. Beyond the civil sanctions of asset seizure, Bondi is facing serious criminal charges. Obstruction of justice carries up to 20 years in prison. Evidence tampering is a serious felony. And if she was working with Trump or others to remove documents, that's conspiracy. All of these charges carry substantial prison time. And the evidence against Bondi is strong. Video of her removing documents, that's hard to overcome at trial. So conviction is likely if prosecutors file charges. Point 9. This aggressive judicial action sends a warning to other Trump allies about the consequences of obstruction. Because everyone in Trump's orbit is watching what happened to Bondi. They're seeing that she removed documents after a court order, and now she's financially ruined and facing arrest and felony charges. That's a powerful deterrent. Other Trump allies who might be thinking about defying court orders or removing evidence are now thinking twice because they don't want to end up like Bondi. Frozen assets, arrest threat, federal charges. That's career ending and potentially life destroying. So this case is preventing future obstruction by showing the harsh consequences. Point 10. This marks unprecedented territory where a former attorney general faces immediate asset seizure for helping Trump obstruct justice. Because Bondi isn't just any Trump ally. She was Attorney General of Florida. She was a top law enforcement official. She's supposed to understand and respect the legal system, and yet she allegedly committed obstruction to help Trump, and now she's facing devastating consequences. Asset seizure, arrest threat, federal charges. That shows no one is too important or too well connected to escape consequences for obstruction. Even former state attorneys general face the full force of judicial sanctions when they defy court orders. So where does this leave us? Pam Bondi got caught on video removing documents from a courthouse right after a judge ordered their production. That's clear, documented obstruction of justice, and the judge responded with maximum force, asset freeze and seizure, immediate arrest threat, criminal referrals. Bondi is now financially paralyzed, legally threatened, and facing potential decades in prison. She has no good options. Produce the documents and potentially incriminate herself or Trump, or refuse to produce them and stay frozen while facing arrest and prosecution. Either way, she loses. And that's exactly what the judge intended, to put Bondi in an impossible position where cooperation is her only viable path forward. This case is also sending a powerful message to other Trump allies: obstruct justice, and this is what happens to you. Financial ruin, arrest, federal charges. That warning is going to make other people think very carefully before helping Trump obstruct justice, because the consequences are too severe, and Pam Bondi is learning that the hard way right now.